Hello, everybody. Welcome back. And I start to see the faces of many of our panelists, and also two of our non-panelists, and you are very welcome. And I hope you will stay with us, both Piotr Blumczynski and Susan Basnet. And I asked you if you would like to join us, even if you did not have the possibility to join one of the panels, because you are members of the advisory board, and so that people get to know you all. We are going towards the end of an intense 2-day event. I'm very happy, but also I must admit a bit exhausted, as probably all of us, because very often when we work on our topics, we have a lens that we look on one thing, and we think that translation is that thing, and then we meet others, and we see that it's this and that and this and that, and it's so many aspects that we had ignored or didn't know about or didn't consider. So it's so huge and so big, and I feel completely guilty all the time. Oh, I didn't know that. I hadn't thought about this. I didn't read this one. It's so huge, and I think and believe that during these 2 days we have had the opportunity to really see what re-envisioning translation studies might be. We have not said everything, but I think we have got some openings, some doors opening towards different possible ways of re-envisioning translation studies. And after having heard your conversations, I'm even more happy than I was in the beginning with the title that actually was suggested by Brian, because I really think that the efforts that you have put into this conversation is questioning, re-envisioning, reimagining, trying to find out where we are, what we want, and maybe also question a few of the things that we until now have taken for granted. And we re-envisioning means that we shall really question a few of the things that we have not maybe been reflecting so much on. I don't think that we shall do this for too long, and I also want to be short. If there is someone that wants to say something urgently, has some question or a comment or something, I'm pleased to give the hand over to you. Otherwise, I have, of course, notes everywhere. I don't know if I can put them into something understandable, but I can also try to pick up a few things from each conversation that I think it's worth continue working on. Of course, there are so many more, but some of them that might maybe include or be a kind of a key for your conversations. Is there somebody that wants to say something now? Comment, question? Brian, please. Put on your mic.
Yes, just very briefly, I was very happy that both Bobli and Sherry mentioned the many conversations, Zoom conversations we had among the advisory board in the months leading up to this inaugural symposium. I thought from that a kind of culture emerged for the center based on conversations among diverse participants, with no one trying to get the final word. I appreciated that. I mean, that was done not by vote or by fiat. It just happened kind of organically. And that, I think, is what made those conversations for me kind of a bright spot in my bleak pandemic existence. So, and they were brilliantly moderated by Siri. So thank you. And I think we can tie that actually to this idea of translation and the infinite iterability of translation, that no matter how much a translator wants to have the final, definitive translation, it's impossible. So again, thank you, Siri, and thank you to all the participants for the great conversations that led up to this.
Thank you so much. Then let me, let me maybe say what I wanted to say about this kind of in regard to what I want to, the thanks that I wanted to say maybe at the end, but it's very closely connected to what Brian was mentioning or saying now. So thank you, Brian. I wrote this down, and so I will read it. Please bear over with me. A warm thank, first of all, and most of all, to the members of the advisory board for their extremely interesting conversations at this inaugural colloquium, but even more importantly, for being willing to serve on the board of NIDA Center for Advanced Research on Translation. From the day in which we contacted you, asking whether you would be willing to participate in the creation of our center, you have all put efforts in construction with ideas, suggestions, proposals, and conversations. And you have participated actively on our monthly meetings, and that means a lot to the center for giving this center, I believe, the identity that we wanted, that we were hoping for. And I believe this colloquium is representing the clear contours of what we wanted. And so I'm so deeply thankful for the way in which you all have participated, as Brian was saying, in that dialogical way, listening, not only wanting to say, I am right, I know, I have the knowledge, I have the truth. So because of course, each member on the board is invited for her or his special qualities, theoretically, scholarly, but also personally. And you are all part of FUSP's history, as Stefan Arduini reminded us about yesterday. And you represent exactly that story, that continuation, that future that we are envisioning for our center. So again, my warmest thanks to each of you for all what you have done so far. And I'm looking very much forward to our future collaborations, dialogues, conversations. So this was what I really wanted to say. So before you run away because you are fed up of everything and you're right, I wanted you really to receive my thanks, my really deep felt thanks. And of course, then my thanks go to Giuliana and Monica and Salvatore and Stefano for having assisted, for having conducted the conversations, for having made this possible technically, theoretically, economically, everything. And of course, thanks to all the attendees around the world who, despite uncomfortable timing, have been participating. Thank you for questions and participation. We would have wanted to see you all wherever you are, but with such a high number of participants, of course, now we are not so many. So we could have switched into another kind of meeting so that we could see each other. But when we saw that so many registered for this conference, we had to opt for this webinar solution. Of course, it would have been, we would have wanted to see you all wherever you are, but we couldn't. And I hope also the attendees have enjoyed these conversations. And if you missed some of the conversations, they have been recorded. Everything has been recorded. and will be available, as I mentioned at the opening today, in streaming on YouTube at the end of next week, because we have to do some editing. And as soon as they are available, you can find the links to YouTube on our website, which is still www.fusp.it. So this was kind of the concluding thanks, but I took them now so that I know that you hear them, and and it was connected to what Brian said. Somebody else that has a comment, something to say regarding the conversation, questions or something? Then I just start, and then I would after I start, if you want to say something, you say it. Otherwise, I give one of each of you. I just say, do you concluding remarks or something, and then we conclude and we say goodbye at the end. During our 5 conversations, we started with. And I think also the way we started and the way we ended was kind of very logic, in a way, that we started with really what are our to start to question the fundaments of our history, and that's what Michelle said, that obsession on history of translation studies. And this invitation to open the box of the official story of translation studies and open up for numerous and alternative or different or numerous genealogies. And I was wondering, if we did the same deep research as Brian has done on the Soviet theoreticians, if we did that in other cultures, in other situations, maybe we wouldn't find something so rich as Brian has found, as the Soviet thinkers. But I guess we would be surprised that there are so many stories, so many genealogies, and that we would maybe be able to create a rhizomatic plural picture of what translation theory is and what translation theory has been. So I think that model and that what came out of the very interesting conversation between them, I think it's also could be an invitation to go elsewhere and open the archives or read what has not been translated into English. We know many languages, and we invite many others to join us. That I think that could be important to open that box and get rid of that linear genealogy that we all are so influenced by, or at least I or many of us. Then we had this very playful conversation between Carolyn and Cobus and the artist Nathan Langston, and showing this wonderful telephone experiment among artists and an experiment of intersemiotic translation. I think one thing, and I've already mentioned it, the playfulness. I think we really should take that with us. And I must say that I saw some of the playfulness sometimes here and there in the conversation, but maybe we should really try also to bring it with us, and we don't need to think that to be wise and intelligent that we need to be so serious. So I think that was a bit interesting lesson, and of course what Cobus was saying, translation is in the first place semiotic. Or we can maybe even go further, if you agree, Cobus, all translation is somehow intersemiotic, or the term I prefer is transsemiotic. And that connects me to also the concept of Carolyn, of plasticity. You were so generous to the other to the other two, so you said so little, but I would like you in the future to develop that, because I'm sure that this idea that we have of flexibility, of fluidity, of rhizomatic, I think that the plasticity that you're speaking about is also very well connected. And speaking about that, it connects me to the next conversation between Bella and Christy and the two PhD students that was so wonderful, and that it connects me to the idea of the interesting difference between temporal versus spatial version of translation. I think that is something to think more about. And in the temporal aspects, those fluid texts that you have not oral or written or original or translation, they go together. There is a fluidity and fluxation between them, which I found very interesting, and we should learn from them. Also, what we heard about audiobooks and access was so important and so interesting. And in my experience, young people are reading, listening to audiobooks. So it's really a phenomenon that we should take seriously. And I think it's so important. What does it do with us that we listen to translations instead of reading the translations? What does it? So it's so interesting, and I would love to work more on that. And this kind of connects me to another aspect that you touched in several moments, and that is the materiality of translation, which connects back to the conversation between Phobos and Nathan, and the intersemiotic or transsemiotic aspect of translation. All translation has also materiality, and you were speaking about the paratext and the packaging. All these aspects are also to be considered when we speak about translation. Then we come to the conversations of today, and the fascinating, where's my program? Conversation between Babli. No, we had yes, the fourth one between Babli and Antonia and Vicente. You opened up so many issues and questions, which were so interesting. What I think is so important, and that the knowledge that you have, and that we really need to do an effort to include in our studies, is the aspect, the importance of plurilingualism and multilingualism as one aspect that really needs to be. I grew up in a monolingual ideology, and translation studies is still so dominated by the monolingual ideology. So I think it's so important that to insist more and more on this multiplicity. As Babli said, she could not join us because it's the middle of the night for her in India now. But what she was speaking about, the multilingual, but not only multilingual, but multi-ethnic, multi-religious, everything in continuous translation. So translation is really life, as Vicente was saying. And again, here we have this fluidity. You say that? Fluidity among languages, among cultures, among ethnicities. And of course, the other aspect of sound, it was so nice to hear that rhythm that Babli was reading. How do you translate that? That sound, how do you translate that? It's and also the examples that Antonia showed us, it's so important on the Amazonian project on indigenous languages, and the importance of really through translation or translation projects and civic project or social projects of testimony and archive of these languages is so it's so important. And that point that you've made, Vicente, about yes, translation is life, but maybe translation is life and death, was I think many of us felt that also. We were struck by that, the actuality of it when we speak about yes, translators today, but also, and that was the very bad formulated question that I had for Sherry and Sala when I was speaking about was trying to introduce the concept of ambivalence, because I think that the life and death is really reflecting that ambivalence, that you don't have life without death and vice versa. And it seemed to me that that could be one of the more fundamental aspects of translation, because then I come to what the very interesting discussion that you had, Sherry and Sala, which was, in my opinion, to think about translation or thinking translationally. What you really did was to find out and define the main principles for thinking translationally or for translation. And I think I agree, we need to have in definitions that are moving, transforming, fluid, we need to have a few principles on which we develop them, I think. And I was thinking that maybe conflict is more one of the outcomes or results of translation, while ambivalence is some of the principles that is really part implicit of any kind of translation. But that's maybe more personal point of view. And the suggestion, I don't remember who said that maybe we should also have a seminar in which we read Baldwin and language and translation. I think that is also a good suggestion. So thank you for very inspirational conversations, all of you. These were just a very, very few tiny things, that observations on the conversations. Now, if you have comments or just a concluding remark, I start as I do in our meetings, and on my left, I see Sala. Do you have something to say, Sala? Putting on the microphone.
Yes. Well, all I can say is that, I mean, thank you for, doing this synthesis or summary of these conversations, first of all. But what I'd like to say is that despite the apparent disparity of our themes and topics, I think there were so many intersections, and it's not because we're talking about translation, all of us, but because there is, something like a kairos of concerns, things that we are concerned about, and this also shows that scholars nowadays, and I believe that maybe more than any time before in translation studies, I think are very much concerned about what's happening in the world, and that we are not anymore in our respective, towers, and academic towers and just think about, you know, whatever happens in our minds without concern for the world. And I think the conversation proved, you know, this legendary image of scholarship very wrong. All the time there was, you know, a legitimate and I think a very genuine concern for what's happening in the world, and that translation is or should, some depending on what conversation we're talking about, is and should be part of the solution. So that's at least my feeling, is that there is so much at stake in what we do. Thinking as we think as scholars, and thinking translationally, more specifically, I think is just in itself an enormous contribution to efforts, you know, of every concerned person for the planet, for the others, and for our societies, respective societies, and the good of human being in general. So it looks very idealistic what I'm saying, but I think that it is very much grounded into the concerns that we've been, you know, discussing all around. I mean, during these 2 days. Yeah. So that was.
Thank you so much, Salah. And I think we can agree that you make us feel that it's possible, that there's a future, there's hope with this kind of also enthusiasm, and you believe that it's worthwhile. And I like that. Thank you very much. Then I see Caroline.
Hi, everyone. It is nice to see those panelists, to see all your faces. And at this point, I won't add anything much more, although I'm going to take away a lot of the ideas and questions and continue, I think, the project of thinking translationally, which I think is a really compelling formulation. And to do so, as Salah says, without repeating imperialistic histories that we have both identified and analyzed, but really see where those possibilities for a new vision are. So yeah, thank you, everyone.
Thank you to you, Caroline. Michelle?
Yeah, I first want to say thank you to Siri, who brought us all together. And it's been amazing, as Brian said, to have these meetings and so on, and to organize this along with Juliana and Salvatore's help and others. I think I'm going to be very quick. I want to kind of repeat what you said, Siri, about this idea of every time I go to a translation conference, I come away thinking how little I know. And I love that. I love that as, you know, in other areas, I think scholars go to prove how much they know. And I think it's such a different sense of community here. And I really love that. And I hope for those who've attended, especially younger scholars, are going away with the idea that there's so much work to be done, whether it's looking at different histories, thinking translationally, Carolyn's idea of plasticity, Cobus's notions from you know, physics, and Antonia's idea of transmediality and you know, oral traditions, and audibility, I think, is so under-researched as an area, even in texts, not even in the oral text, but in texts themselves. How do we hear the translator? So I hope if one thing comes out of it is not only a sense of community, but also for any certainly younger scholars who've come to attend the conference to feel that there are whole vistas of research out there, and that we need you to expand and keep the field alive. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Michelle. And then I see Piotr. It's nice that you are here with us, even if you couldn't join the conversations. Do you want to say something, or do you want? You feel free to do whatever.
I just wanted to say hi to you guys. I wanted to. I thought I felt sort of bittersweet for having missed so much and sort of tuning in and out, but I feel really bitter rather than sweet. And yet I wanted to come and see you and say how much I miss you and how much I hope to be able to be an active participant in the future events. As I said, I was able to listen to fragments and bits and pieces, so I'm really looking forward to going on YouTube in a couple of days' time and tuning in more meaningfully. In the meantime, I'm raising a glass to all of you. Thank you. Have a great summer, and I really have great hopes and expectations for the center.
Thank you so much, Piotr. Very nice that you could come and say hello to us. We appreciate that. And then I see Sherry.
I'm going to be very brief, and I just want to echo whatever everyone else has said. And I feel I'm so pleased that we're ending this on tone of optimism and new horizons and community and all those positive emotions. And I really do look forward to further discussions. I agree with Brian that just meeting over that time and having these freewheeling discussions and thoughts, and we came up with these themes that was miraculous. And you know, it seemed to be quite organic, and they worked so well. So avanti, avanti. On to the next.
Avanti. Thank you so much. Grazie mille, Sherry.
Oh, that's not. Sorry, didn't mean to do that.
Hello, Kobus. It's hi. Do you have something to say? Putting on the microphone, yes.
Yes. Sorry, my microphone was obstinate. So I just wanted to thank you, Siri, for inviting me to play, and for all the other members of the board for accepting me as a kid on the block. I appreciate it. As a parting thought, I think it is, for me, a good thing that the title of the center is for advanced studies in translation and not in translation studies. So that we would be able, hopefully with this center, to explore all kinds of ways in which translation impact and help create our societies, and that we don't feel that we need to promote or defend empire, but that we just roam and explore. So thanks, and good luck for the future of the center.
Thank you so much, Kobus. You're actually saying what we want to do and what we want to avoid to do. So thank you. Christy, please.
I keep changing what I want to say. First of all, thank you. And I'm so glad that I saw the invitation and I took it up, because it's been so inspiring. I'm really excited about that. I have to say, one phrase that I haven't heard anyone repeat, but has been my personal favorite, is thinking about translation as managing the chaos, that came up in Carolyn Kobus's discussion with Nathan. It wasn't just that as an idea, but how enthusiastic he was in thinking about just learning more and more from other people. And I could really picture how that worked when Carolyn invited him. And it was just a lovely invitation to be thinking about these transmodal exchanges and going on and trying to figure out how to organize them and rein them back in. It seemed like a very nice metaphor, but what I think is happening here, and I saw so many connections. It would be fun to see if he could figure out how to represent that, to show all the things that have been happening between us, including playfully. I think that these sense of community and playfulness that has gone along with the ethical commitments a lot of us have, as well as scholarly investments. So thank you so much, especially to Siri and all the people at the Fondazione who have been really supporting us all along.
Thank you so much, Christy. And I agree that, yes, the chaos metaphor is also very nice. Bella has sent a message because she has difficulties with her, the microphone is not working, but she just wanted to say thank you. Oops. Thank you so much of an extremely generative, stimulating and interesting colloquium. And then I can't see any more of the message. Interesting colloquium. Thank you, especially to Siri, for all of her creative work, and I look forward to our next steps. So thank you so much, Bella. And now I see Vince. I called you as in the Italian way, Vince.
Yeah, Vincenzo. Let me just reiterate everyone's sense of gratitude, the warm welcome that you've extended, even if virtually, to everyone in this room. Of course, as Carolyn and I have been messaging, we miss Rimini, and we miss the after-dinner drinks that would have accompanied the conference. And we hope that perhaps post-pandemic days will make this an even more joyful gathering. One last thing I did want to say is that in this conference, like many other translation conferences I go to, make it very apparent that translation is so open-ended that is always enormous amounts of possibilities that open up whenever one talks about translation, when one starts somewhere else and then ends where one didn't expect to end, which is great, because what that suggests to me is that translation studies will resist, thankfully, the prospect of becoming disciplined. So talking about the interdisciplinary studies of translation makes little sense, because for starters, translation can never be disciplined. It will always have, if you will, a promiscuous trajectory. And it's that promiscuity that I think is a lot of fun and always very, very useful to exploit and to develop. So here's to a promiscuous future of translation studies.
Good suggestion. Thank you, Vincent.
Yeah.
Brian, do you want to word again, or do you feel that you have said enough?
Well, I've probably said enough, but one final sentence just to talk about the evolution of these ideas. I hadn't thought about my paper on the myth history of translation studies in relation to your notion of post-translation studies, but since then and over the course of this symposium I have, and I think if we, reject this developmental model of history, what Chakrabarty calls Western historicism itself, then we don't read that post as superseding everything that had come before, as relegating all of that to the dustbin of history, right? All of that excellent scholarship, but instead we're opening up a field that threatened to become what De Souza Santos calls an academic monoculture, and putting all those wonderful texts in conversation with other texts and traditions. And I just would end by saying, if any field of study could model a truly academic pluriculture, it should be translation studies.
It couldn't be said better, Brian. Thank you. Thank you so much. Antonia, you have the honor of being the last one to come with some remark or comment or whatever.
Well, like Christy, I want to say so many things all the time, but I appreciate the company. I appreciate the thirsty minds of the board, because that's like the one thing that connects our research. It's as many have said, it's very ethical. And in a planet that's crumbling into pieces, it is very comforting to be surrounded by ethical colleagues that are truly and honestly searching in their own ways the possibilities that lay ahead in the midst of despair and loneliness, and and that's that shift that I was referring to, how to think about life in the midst of death. And I agree that this was a very ambitious project, but also a beacon of hope throughout the pandemic and all these meetings. And it was hard to conceptualize it, to visualize it. It took a bit of talking to make it happen, but the conversations are so rich and it takes us into so many directions that it just confirms my original hunch. Is like, why are we doubting that there is a future? And so with that, I just wanted to thank everybody and the team for making this happen.
Thank you very much, Antonia. I think it's time to conclude also, because we have really used Monica's efforts to the extreme. She has supported us so well and conducted us during these 2 days perfectly. So really many thanks to Monica. I don't know if we can see you, Monica, now. Are you there somewhere? Could we see you so that you can? There you are. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Monica, and thank you, Juliana, for all of everything. And where is Salvatore? Salvatore, 2 doors. I don't know what that means. 2 doors and a small window. There you are. Thank you to you too.
Thank
See
you.
you
Everyone.
soon. We keep in touch, and my warmest thanks to all of you, and of course all the attendees that have resisted along these 2 days. Thank you so much, and goodbye to everybody.
Goodbye, everyone.
Thank you.